with a segment of the electorate that has been.
I get to gloat, here about all this because
Some stunning new reporting and a new examination of the current polls reveal Trump is struggling mightily with a segment of the electorate that has been staunchly on his side. They've elected him twice. But now they're growing angrier and angrier with the state of the economy following the launching of the war with Iran. New York Times reports this, quote, blue-collar white voters are for the first time seriously doubting Trump's handling of the economy. A review of.
and there you have it. So I distinctly recall what it was I was saying, in the run up to this election and everything that, about a bunch of economists had been sending a letter to the American people warning that while Trump was talking a big game about inflation, and he was saying that he was going to get inflation under control, his policy proposals, like the tariffs and everything, were likely to just aggravate it and make inflation even worse. I was saying that in the lead up and the run up to this election, I am constantly asked by right wing men and people that are like politics why they should listen to me and everything. They want as if they want me to justify why they should listen to my is that I have to say. But when somebody if you want to know why you should listen to me, like it's really simple. When somebody has a back record of so consistently being right about their predictions, maybe you should, actually take a page to actually listen to what they have to say because I saw this one coming a mile away. I knew the buyer's remorse was going to set in the moment he won because I knew that his tariffs were going to make what Biden's economy was. It's because I know one thing that really gets stated in politics and in political reality is full of such delusional, over the top optimism, which is it can always get worse. Always. There's no bottom. Really, it can always manage to get the economy can always get even worse than it already is, and the situation can go from bad to worse. And I was saying this. I was saying inflation is already bad enough, and yet here Trump kick all the immigrants out. And there's, tariffs on a bunch of countries, even though that's not really going to do a whole lot to bring back a massive manufacturing anywhere in the country and everything. And, much of the manufacturing is going to be done by robots if it comes back at all and everything. And here we are, 2 years later, on into the president's, second term in office and everything. And I was right. I saw this coming a mile away. I warned you. I told you. I told you so. I told you. Trump's policy proposals were likely to make inflation worse. Why should you listen to me? Why shouldn't you? Should be the question. I mean, when I happen to be right about these things so goddamn often, when I happen to make the right judgment call about them, why should it matter who I am, what I've done, how I've lived my life, or any of that shit? What I've done with myself. All that really should matter, on the merits of it is that I was right about these kinds of things, and I made the right judgment call about it, and I made the right warning. In fact, I think I did the right thing, and I tried to do a service to you by warning you that this was going to make it worse. You just didn't want to fucking hear what I did that I had to say, but too bad. I was right. And so I get to gloat about this. I told you so. I told you that this was exactly what was going to happen, and look, now it actually has. And now white people are finally starting to turn in my direction. But you're just catching up to where I've been the whole fucking time. You know, I was warning back in 2024, in 2002, that this policy agenda, these things that Donald Trump is saying that he wants to do with the economy are just going to make inflation worse and everything. And look at what happened. Look at grocery prices. Look at the price of gasoline lately, and all that other stuff. You've seen it. Who are you going to believe, him or your lying eyes? You've seen the way that gas prices have gone up. You've seen the way that grocery prices have continued to climb and everything. And all I'll say about this is that at least Biden was trying to do something to address the issue when he and the Biden administration was when they were in power because they knew it was hurting them. For this to happen, they knew voters were going to turn on them. Look at what Trump's doing. He's just doubling down on the same bullshit, continuing to make everything worse and everything. He has fucked things up. He's royally fucked the economy. He's deported a bunch of immigrants, slapped a bunch of tariffs on everything, and made inflation worse. He came to office saying that he would get grocery prices under control. Now, have they come under control? He came into power saying, that he was for the working class and all these poor people and everything, and yet he's shafting that very constituency that was supposed to back him the most and everything, and to be behind him and everything. He has screwed you. I also did warn farmers that, you think that he's still gonna be still gonna bail you out if any of his policies hurt you, but he isn't. Not in the same proportion as last time because he doesn't need you anymore. He knows his last term in office. He may, ultimately want to serve a third term, but he knows that the Constitution prohibits that, and so he knows he's going to get kicked out at some point, by the Constitution, and they won't even be legal to put him on the ballot and everything, because of the 22nd Amendment, which they're not going to be able to repeal because of the fact that you don't just need 2/3 of both chambers of Congress, but you need 2/3 of the states to ratify it as well, and that just is way too big of a hurdle for them to clear on this one, because no Democrat would ever support this and everything. And so, and then we've got plenty of Democratic states. I mean, they don't have 2/3 of everything, so they just don't have the votes and whatnot. So if he's not going to get a fucking third term, it's just not gonna fucking happen. And they can send the military in to have him forcefully removed if he tries to refuse to leave when the next candidate is sworn in, he could totally kick him out by force and everything, and have him forcefully evicted if he doesn't leave and he tries to be a stubborn little fuck that stays in the building. Well, that doesn't matter. We'll have him forcefully removed and frog marched out of the White House, and everything. And so, this. I warned you about all of this. I said he didn't need farmers anymore and he wasn't going to bail them out to the same extent. And any bailout that he did give them was going to be a pittance compared to what they lost, and everything this time around. That this time was different because he didn't need any of the people that got him in the first place, and so he wasn't going to be doing them favors. I told you all of that. Now, you who smugly thought I was wrong, you who smugly thought you knew better than me, how does it feel to know that you fucked around and now you're finding out?